Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another video on Starseed Academy. My name is Jenny. Today we are jumping back into the Meet the Cosmos series where we are going around and going to different worlds and different beings and doing these interviews and this investigative work to see, like in a little adventure, to see like what's out there. And I had a ton of requests from you guys, so many. I wrote most of them down and they just keep coming. Thank you. Keep sending them because it's actually really great and really helpful. So far, I have a page worth of notes of requests. But I found that, and there's also more questions for the GFL. So I will definitely be doing another interview with the Galactic Federation of Light asking your questions. I think I've done a couple of those, 2 of those so far. So today, a lot of people wanted to know about Mintaka and water worlds specifically. So I dove deeply, pun not intended, dove deeply into that. And I have so many pages of notes to share with you guys, plus some really poorly drawn diagrams. You just can't judge. There's a reason that I don't draw for you guys what I see often, but sometimes I have to. It's not well done, but it gets a point across. So I really want to jump right in because there's so much to cover. But of course, before we do, I just want to remind you that going on these kinds of adventures, like around the galaxy, around the universe, either astrally or in a meditative state or remote viewing, these are all things that we do in the Starseed Academy membership. We do them often. We've been to Orion's Belt, which is kind of similar to what we're doing today. We've been to Andromeda. We've been to Avalon. We've been ancient Egypt, like just so many amazing places. And we also have these incredible workshops inside the membership as well. I'm in the middle of teaching a spiritual business workshop. So it's not just one thing, in the membership. We do so much. We do like inner child healing, soul retrievals, group readings, workshops on like starting a spiritual business, what's your earth mission, workshops on channeling, like workshops on the things that I'm good at teaching, like psychic gifts and channeling, which are like my signature. And then going on these incredible adventures together as well. So please think about joining the membership. It is such an amazing place to be. It will take you to the next level in more ways than you realize. And we get together live every single week on Zoom, just like this. Where you get a chance to interact with me and the group and share and have these experiences. Plus, there's a huge, vast library that is instantly available to you when you join of all of the things that I just mentioned. So, okay, I'm going to stop talking about the membership now. I love it so much. It truly excites me. It gets me so excited. I know that's where the majority of my energy is going to be heading because I see it just growing and becoming something so powerful. So now let's jump into Mintaka. Let's talk a little bit about that world before we dive into the experience that I had when I went there. Okay, and I'll explain to you how that happened. But first, just a little bit of info first. Okay, so Mintaka is a part of Orion's Belt. So you've got like 1, 2, 3 stars in Orion's Belt, 3 main stars. There's more than that. Mintaka is the far right. Okay, when you're looking at Orion's Belt, it's the far right-hand one. There are 4 suns, Mintaka being the biggest of those 4. And again, I'm not talking about the rest of the belt of Orion. I'm just talking about the Mintaka section now. That 3rd star that's a part of the belt, that's the largest sun, but there are 3 other suns right there. The smallest one is the size of our sun, and then the other 2 are like in the middle. There are multiple planets, like exoplanets, within this Mintaka area of these 4 suns, but Earth scientists have yet to locate any of them because it's like too bright for them to really see it when there's 4 suns. And then there's also all of this like space dust for them to try to see through. It's like a cloud. So they haven't located them yet, but we know that they're there. If you're a Mintakan Starseed, which I'll be talking about the characteristics of a Mintakan Starseed at the end of this, so stick around for that so that you can know what you can expect to, have as spirit gifts, like soul gifts, if you're Mintakan, and maybe what your Earth mission could even be. But anyway, so we know that those planets are there, but they haven't technically been discovered yet by like our science, or if they have, our scientists just haven't shared that with us yet, which is not that crazy. They don't tell us hardly anything that they do. Many websites claim that there is a Mintakan water world. I've seen that all over the internet, and I wanted to find out if that was true today, because that's what you guys were specifically asking about, like the Mintakan mer people, these water worlds. Are they real? What's there? And you know, the many underwater intelligent beings that live there, who's there basically. So let's jump in. So the first thing that I did was I went to the Galactic Federation of Light to get help, to find somebody that I could talk to. I really like using them in this series because they have all of the ancient information about the universe and the worlds and the versions and the histories of our galaxy. And they also have a lot of different kinds of people, like scientists and like people, explorers, I guess, like people that go out specifically and do all of this. So when I got there, you know, I only have to hold in my mind the intention of what I want. And when I get there, the right person's always waiting there for me. But I do set up a sacred space and make sure that it is all in the divine light. And I usually say, like, let everything that comes through, information wise, be true, be divinely true, divinely detailed, and let it be, you know, for the highest good, this information that comes through of humanity. You know, what do we need to know basically? So when I'm meeting with these beings, it's not just like, oh, I don't know who I'm talking to, because I know a lot of people are really worried about that, you know, false information. And just to let you know that I always set up that sacred space. So I actually met with a galactic cartographer, which who knew that was a thing, and his name was Unkai. And he okay, so here's the first diagram, because I really had to draw what he looked like because it was so unique, but it's so bad, so please do not judge me. I'm gonna show you and then I'll describe it as I show you, but again, let's not all laugh hysterically at this. Okay, I'm gonna scooch in. All right, so the galactic cartographer Unkai, okay, that's how it's spelled, that's how it's pronounced. This guy had like kind of like a purple, dark purple, grayish kind of skin. He was not a gray. He had like a really bulbous, huge head. And then he had these like lines that were almost like, you know how we have freckles? It was almost just like natural, like pigmentation that looked kind of like, I don't know, maybe kind of like zebra stripes in a way, that were just like this darker purple gray color. And then he had these little black beady eyes, not much of a nose, and just like a little opening for a mouth. I really didn't see a neck, this huge head though, like really exaggerated, oversized head. And then he was wearing this white, like doctor's kind of lab coat. And then of course he had just like the 3 fingers and toes, but there was like extra knuckles, I guess, like extra joints on all of these. So anyway, that's my rendition of what I saw. Okay, so he actually invited me to get into like a smaller ship, so like a 2-person kind of almost glass dome that we got in to go to Mintaka area. You know, we can't go to Mintaka. Mintaka's the sun, and you'll just burn right up. But there are planets all around that. Okay, so we went to the area where those 4 suns were that I was talking to you about, and I saw the 4 bright suns. And then I saw many worlds. I couldn't count how many, but they ranged from deserts to rainforests. And then at the quietest, coolest sun out of the 4, which is the sun that was similar to ours, was 2 water worlds. Again, mini diagram here. All right, so this was the smallest sun, and then these are the 2 water worlds. And so I went to the right one. This is my right-hand side. So we went to the right-hand world. So in this world, this Mintakan water world, there was a pink sky. It was full water coverage, but there were peaks coming up of land, and they were like mountains from the crust of this planet that had risen up through this water, and like mountain peaks. Okay, third diagram. So like these mountains that were really, really large and wide at the bottom, but then as they come up, just the tips are outside of the water, and this is all the water world. So there's just a little bit of like land dwellers just on these peaks, but they were everywhere, like everywhere. It's like this whole place was just all these peaks, and then I'm sure like layers of depths of water where the main life was happening. But on the peaks, because that's what I saw first, there was actual like grass and plant life. Okay, so there was a bit of a surface world, if that makes sense. Just flipping the page here. So the life on this planet, and I didn't get a name because, I mean, it hasn't been found yet by science, so it actually doesn't have a name. And I actually just didn't tune into a name for this world. It didn't seem to have one. Or maybe it just wasn't, and there wasn't an English translation that I could tune into. But anyway, so the life on this planet happened in layers. So we're going to talk about it as we go down. So the top layer, of course, was the peaks that were outside of the water. And in these peaks, there were birds. And the birds flew between. There were trees too. It wasn't just grass. Like some of these peaks had like, they would have been like mini mountains or hills, and they had like trees and they had grass and they had some flowers. They really did have like quite a bit of nature. And then they had birds that could fly between them. They had small mammals that resembled like goats and a few different other ones that I haven't seen like here on Earth, just little scurrying mammals. They had lots of insects and something that looked very much like bees, which makes sense to be the pollinators that would travel these risings that came out of the water and keep them, you know, keep the flowers and the plants and everything alive. Okay, so that was on the peaks. I did not see any like carnivorous beings on these peaks. Everything was like insects or mammals, or like no big carnivores. Like even if the little mammals were eating maybe some of the insects or some fish, maybe, you know, but there wasn't any like anything the size of like bears or lions or anything like that to compare it to Earth. So then the second layer of life were the beings that lived partly on the land and partly in the water. And these were turtles. Looked regular, like actual turtles, and turtles always look like turtles, no matter where I find them in the universe. They are so ancient that they just are themselves every time. But then I saw some interesting things. I saw walking shellfish. So like, you know how we have starfish, but these like walked. So different walking kinds of shellfish, or like crustaceans, I guess is the right word. And then there were also these lizards that were gilled and like finned, and they were like able to go on land, and they swam perfectly, and they could go underwater and everything. So cute, like lots of lizards. And then there were seals. It's very similar to what we would see here on Earth, but they were like spotted like a cow. They had spots all over them. Okay, so that was the second layer of life. The third layer of life would just be the top part of the water, and that was typical like small fish, water insects, lots of plant life. And then as we get deeper into the layers of the water world now, so then you're getting into larger fish, going deeper, you're getting into like large tortoises, going deeper than that, you're getting into the dolphins, and you're getting into humanoid amphibians. They were living in the underwater mountain caves. So the peaks of the mountains were for the land dwellers. And then as you went down, they got wider and wider and wider. And there were all of these caves, all of these like mountain underwater caves that were huge. They were separated, like they started out as like tunnels, and then those tunnels would open up into larger caverns where these beings would like live and stay. Super cool. And then below, we're going to come back to the humanoids because I know that's probably all you care about in this video. You want to know more about them. I already know that. I'm coming back. Underneath that, though, was whales, sharks, octopus, and then like really large, like Leviathan style beings, prehistoric kind of things. And again, I don't think that's that different from our ocean life. I mean, we don't really know what's all down there. It felt like it could have been on Earth looking at it, except for some of the weird things like the spotted seals and the little lizard guys. Okay, so let's go back to the humanoids because I know that's what you want to know about. So the humanoid amphibious beings. Humanoid means they're built like us. They have a head, shoulders, arms, torso, okay? There was lots of different versions of them. There were so many versions. Okay. So some of them had like one tail, a solid tail. Some of them had like webbed feet or flippers. Like, so they had two legs, whereas the other ones just had the tail, like you would think of like on a mermaid kind of thing. They could all see in the dark, all of them. So they had special like pupils and like larger eyes to be able to do that. And like the shape of their eye seemed more pronounced, and it was very like big pupils. They had no hair. Okay. But they did have some decorative like fins and gills and things, but no hair. Single tail or webbed feet or flippers. They had slick, rubbery skin, thick, rubbery skin like a dolphin. Not at all like a human. Because it would have to be like non-porous and stuff to be under the water. They had sharp teeth, but very, very little. Like, so just little, like ours, like still all these teeth, but like little tiny points, all these little teeth, which makes sense for their diet because they ate all the little fish and some plant life. They were very muted colors. So some were very muted oranges or pinks or blues or purples or greens or grays, muted though, so as not to call attention to themselves, which obviously they wouldn't want to do that. There were sharks and stuff, so you're not going to want to be some bright fish. Okay. And I didn't try and draw this, oh my God, but I tried to look online to see if I could find some pictures for you of the kinds of beings. I just want to preface this, okay, with I cannot tell you how many people have come to me and have asked me to show them their mermaid life. And they want to see, that they had like pink shining hair and like a perfect manicure and like the little shelf bra and, that they were like this cute, like human. And then they just had a beautiful glittering tail, very much like the Little Mermaid. And what I have to reveal to them is, yes, you're right. You did have this like lifetime as this humanoid amphibious being, but it's not like the Little Mermaid. They don't need hair. In fact, hair would be like really unhelpful under the water. It would be getting caught in things, entangled in things. And if you just look at the underwater worlds, dolphins don't have hair. Like they don't have hair. You're not going to have hair if you're one of these beings. And you're not going to have human skin at all. And you're not going to have the same kind of teeth that we have. And you're going to need gills here and, around your rib area. And you're going to need a tail or flippers. And like, it's not about beauty. It's about, but to them, they're beautiful because it's not human standards of beauty. It's their standards of beauty, which is probably like so stunning, right? We can't apply human beauties of standards to other worlds. It doesn't make sense. However, there is a but. However, I will say that I have seen what you would call the typical like Little Mermaid, but that was a shapeshifter. I have seen shapeshifters on Earth during the time of Lemuria and leading a little bit into Atlantis, where some people were able to fully shift into dolphins. They could fully become a dolphin, or they could do like the bottom half and just have like, if you're a shapeshifter and you're really good at it and it's like an ancient bloodline for you, you can partially shift. You don't have to fully shift into the fish or the dolphin. So you could just do a waist down and then the rest of you would still be that human that you were. So if you're seeing yourself in a past life as that like top part is like human with hair and with this kind of skin and these kinds of teeth, you're probably more likely a shapeshifter than you are like an underwater being. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense for like evolution and what you would need if you lived under the water. This skin would not do it. It would not. You would need non-porous. So anyway, I've got some. And these beings, I'm going to show you a picture now. These beings did not have clothes. Like there's no reason for clothing, but they did use tools and they did have some adornments. So I thought that this picture, it's a little bit blurry, but it's pretty accurate. Now, remember, there's lots of versions. So I'm going to show you a few. Oh, I hope that, hold on. Let me see if my camera will stop making this. So I'm going to turn the brightness down. Let me try this. All right, does that work? Yeah, you can see that if I put it on an angle. See that guy's face? Hands, bit of claws for hands. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. The tail, the muted colored skin, the tools that he's using. Let me pull up another one. And then there was this vibe here. See where the fin kind of takes on where the hair would be, minus the clothing, because I didn't see any clothing on these beings. Let me see if I can find one more, because there were so many versions of these amphibious humanoids that they all looked very different from one another, like the placement of the fins, whether they had 2 feet or 1 tail. Just stuff like this, basically. Okay, sort of. I mean, not exactly. So anyway, just to say that it's not the typical like mermaid vibe that we see in like movies and fantasies, unless maybe it's that shapeshifter in that case it could be. All right, so again, they could see in the dark. They had no hair. They had decorative fins, though. They had gills here and in their ribs, single tail or webbed feet, flippery things, thick, slick, rubbery skin, sharp little teeth, muted colors. They ate little fish. And they had a relationship with dolphins, which was really, really special, actually. They worked together with the dolphins to round up large amounts of fish into nets. Because remember, I said they used tools. They were very intelligent. They were using spears and nets and many different kinds of tools. And so they worked together with the dolphins, which was really cool to see, and found ways to communicate with them. So to communicate, they used sound vibrations when they were trying to communicate with dolphins and whales. It sounded like a reverberating sound deep in the throat and in the chest that they were using. And then when they were communicating with each other, they were using hand signing and a mixture of those sounds. They had a vast variety of looks to them. Like I said before, like they were all so unique. And they were very muscular, very fast, very strong. They had those big dark eyes. And then they had on the tips of their fingers, they had claws. Because again, like it wouldn't make sense to have fingers without that down there. What are you going to do? So it's just like with their teeth, that this is what they would, the evolution would give a being like this that would grow up under the water. So their feet were these fins or flippers, and then their clawed hands would be able to like dig things up, like dig up, maybe they're going to eat shellfish or pulling up plants or catching things. So they had a bit of like a claw feel on their hands. They used lots of tools like nets and spears, and they created a lot of things with their hands too, like adornments. I saw some of them wearing different adornments. And I'm going to talk about that actually in a sec. They stayed underwater. So they weren't like half up on water for part of their day and they were underwater. Okay. They didn't come up because the sun was not friendly to their skin. So like you don't see a dolphin, hanging out partly on land. Doesn't mean they can't pop up and have a look around and then go back down or have fun jumping out and jumping in. But I'm saying they didn't lay up on the water the way that a seal does. They were very curious, very intelligent, very family oriented, very inventive. They loved beautiful things. And they were very warm and very friendly. They had carvings on the walls inside of these caverns where they lived. And it was so many, it was like an apartment almost, like these underwater mountains were so huge and there were so many of them, and all the way around there were all these openings, and they would make them bigger and shape them with their tools to be nice, to be big enough. They would probably shape the tunnels too, and even the caverns. So they made it their own. And then inside they had a lot of them had like engravings, like artistic engravings, or maybe it was a language on the walls to decorate or to preserve information even. Okay. And then they were, spiritually speaking, they were very connected to the spirit of the mountains. So each one of these mountains had its own like spirit or consciousness, and they were very connected to that spirit of the mountain, especially the one that they lived in. And they would send their thanks and their gratitude to these mountains for keeping them safe, like giving them homes. They also believe that the currents, how there's underwater currents, they also believe that those were spirits, a spirit somehow moving through the water, and some were gentle and loving, and some were angry spirits and would try to drag you away, which is kind of amazing. I've never thought of currents that way before, but it kind of just makes you think a little bit. They didn't venture into the depths of their underworld, but some of their heroes did, because they had ancient lore and ancient stories that they would talk about their own ancestors, and some of their heroes would go very deep into these underworlds of their world and talk about the things that they found there and the kinds of creatures and monsters that they found there. Like the really adventurous ones would, do that. Their worlds were so huge and so deep and just so vast, and they were so curious and adventurous and playful and beautiful storytellers. They didn't battle each other, even though there was a lot of different kinds, colors, species. They didn't battle each other. They came together, and to work together. And then they were also interested in finding ways to communicate with other beings like the dolphins. And I saw that they were working on trying to communicate with tortoises because they knew how ancient of a spirit they were. They were actually trying different ways to see if the tortoise would react or respond. So they were very intelligent and almost like scientists in a way. The dolphins figured it out quickly. They were working together already, but they were trying to figure out a way to communicate with tortoises at that time when I tuned in. It looked to me like they already communicated with whales, but didn't work together the way that they did with dolphins. Maybe just spoke to them and sometimes got responses. Okay, so then I was talking to you about how they created medallions and different jewelry to wear. So what I saw was that they actually wore medallions for protection, and that they would use the ancient elders to do this. The older ones in the tribes would use spell work and ritual to create them and infuse them with protection. And they would use different materials, kind of somehow pounded together, fused together, reflective. It was always to be somehow, it looked to me very reflective. So I don't know if it was metal or shell or what it was, but these were medallions of protection. And so they were a little bit superstitious maybe, or just really believed in the ability to protect themselves with intention, which we all believe in, right? They were very spiritual when it came to being connected with the spirits of their own world, the spirit of the mountains, the spirit of the ocean, the spirits of those currents, the spirits of the whales, the sky. They understood that everything had a consciousness, and they were very in tune and in harmony with that. They also had disclosure in their world because they knew who Unkai was. Because they knew who Unke was, the galactic cartographer that brought me there. It's like they knew him. And the glass bubble of a vehicle was able to go underwater, and they were able to communicate with him in that way. And they were friendly about that. And they actually assisted him in his cartography, mapping out this world, showing him things and bringing him places. So disclosure was something that they were used to, right? Because this is a being coming from off-world to them, and that wasn't it wasn't a big deal. That was something that they were used to. So there are other water worlds that we talked about, like Andromeda. There's water world in Andromeda, maybe more than one. I know that there's a popular one in Sirius. Sirius B, I believe, is also an underwater world. And so there could be similarities to those, but I specifically was studying Mintaka water worlds, and there were two of them, and I only saw this one, the one with the pink sky. So signs for a Mintakan starseed then would be that you would have a natural inclination or interest or talent for sound and frequency healing. communication in alternative forms, because they were always trying to find new ways to communicate with beings that didn't communicate the way that they did. So an alternative form of communication, and being good at that. So maybe somebody that, you know, is really good at communicating with animals, nature, um, people with learning disabilities, like maybe autistic children, something like that. Um, a Mintakan starseed would also be very at one with nature and nature spirits. They would believe in the power of the group coming together, and not think of somebody like other humans as other. It would be like, well, we're all the same. So the way that they did in that world, just because they were different colors or species of that, they were still all one, and they were this one group that worked together. Um, so they would believe in the power of the group and of the power of community. They would be adventurers, potentially inventive. They would be called to the ocean, called to the sea, like really resonant with that and the worlds within. They would probably be happiest or healthiest or feel the best on a seafood and plant diet. And they would probably also be very artistic or highly creative. They might even be superstitious, where they were like really careful with their energy and their intentions. And so, that being known, then maybe potential Earth missions, your purpose for being here could be helping others to find their voice, a sound and frequency healer, a writer, a musician, like a storyteller, a writer, a musician, because that's that sound frequency, an artist, an inventor, but somebody highly creative, and also potentially a conservationist or somebody who was very much into preserving like nature. So that's all I have for notes about Mintaka. I'd love to hear your comments and what you think, especially about like the layers of life in their world and how they appear physically. Let me know if any of that resonates for you, and if you feel like you have that as a past life or a parallel life of yours. Um, I'll invite you to continue sending in requests for the Meet the Cosmos, because I'm going to be moving on and doing another video shortly. I don't know what I'm going to choose. I have a list right now from you guys for requests, but I'll just keep adding to that. And when I have enough questions for the GFL, I'll do another interview with the Galactic Federation of Light and ask those questions. Again, I want to invite you to check out the Starseed Academy membership, because this is just so normal for us, like meeting once a week, doing all kinds of amazing events and journeys together, and then also having that access to this community, support, information, like a vast library of information, workshops, so much inside the membership. So I invite you to check the link in the description box below to check that out. Other than that, please subscribe for new videos here every Sunday. Come follow me on Instagram for new content. And I hope you have a beautiful day, Starseed. Please remember, listen to your heart and the quiet voice within, because you are so much more than the body you are in. I love you, beautiful Starseeds. Have a great day. Bye.